Welcome to another episode of the KC Conversation. This episode is about buying a house in Dubai. I've noticed over the years there have been several advertisements from different media, like companies and government entities, and talking about the benefits of buying a house in Dubai versus renting. I'll talk to you about my experience and how I feel about it. The inception of the idea took place when my wife and we were living on rent for a few years, and we didn't have too much of a good experience. It was probably like our isolated incident, but we just decided that we didn't want to deal with the real estate agents, and we didn't want to deal with this yearly renovation and anticipating the fact that maybe we would be asked to leave or we would have to shift, and we didn't want to deal with all that. And we also thought about long-term investment and if it would be possible for us to think about future savings. And we thought that real estate would be the way to go, considering our plan. So when we thought about buying a house in the country, we thought the best idea would be to buy one in Dubai, which is the commercial capital of the country. And we thought we should buy it with like a reputed developer and so forth. So this is where our journey of getting to know the process of how to buy a house in Dubai started. Once we were interested, we started investigating, and we found out that we first need a pre-approval from the bank. So the pre-approval base is based on your profile, your age, and your salary scale, and everything about you, your credit history, and how much you can afford, and such. And there's a profile made on you, and then the bank decides that they can pre-approve you to have a mortgage of X amount. So once you get this X amount, you can start house hunting because now you know what mortgage is allowed to you and what is not. So when you get this amount and then you run a search on Dubizzle or Property Finder or whatever, and you find out within your budget what you're looking for. So once we got our pre-approval, we had a bunch of options from different banks, and we were presented with the best deal considering our profile. And once we started dealing with these banks and the real estate agents, we realized that most of the real estate agents are quite incompetent. In fact, some were downright pathetic in the sense, in terms of their know-how, in terms of their interaction with the customer, which was me, and also the processes involved in buying a house and getting transactions done and such. These real estate agents were quite problematic, and I had a lot of trouble dealing with them. So I looked for a solution to this, and my solution to this was to hire a mortgage broker. And the mortgage broker route turned out very well for me and my family because we found extremely good mortgage brokers and they knew exactly what they were doing. They were probably the reason why our process of acquiring the house that we wanted, along with the loan that we could manage, everything went quite smoothly. And even though a few real estate agents tried to cheat us, our mortgage brokers advised us against being sucked into the trap of the real estate agents. It was quite a good experience with them. So while all this took place, we started finalizing the deal, and once the deal was finalized, from then to moving in took about 3 months. And even after we moved in, Diva and Do and all these connections were made quite seamlessly. In fact, we didn't even have to go to any offices and such. Everything was done over the internet and over the phone, online on the application, including the deposits and the activation and everything. I just had to scan a couple of documents and send it across on the app. And within a few hours, in fact, my Diva connection was on. The Do connection took like a few days, but that was understandable. and we've been enjoying living in this house ever since. Now, let's talk about the advantages of buying a house as compared to renting one. So, the first thing I can think of is that you don't deal with low quality people who try to cheat you. When you are renting, you often have to meet the real estate agents who handle your property, and sometimes they are not the best of people, and they make you react in different ways. They take advantage of your being nice and being a kind, soft person. So that happens a lot in this country. I have witnessed it. So this is something you can avoid. Secondly, you get complete control over your property. So you have the freedom to modify and maintain your house the way you like. You can spend on what you want and you can hold back on what you want. The next one is a sense of privilege which you feel that you're living in your own house and you feel a sense of calm. It's a privilege to be living in your own house anywhere in the world, but especially in this country because it's not usual. And staying in your own house, in the house that you own, always feels a bit different than living on rent. I don't know how to explain it to you, but that's kind of what I feel. It's almost like having a car on lease, and it's probably a nice car which you like. But then having your own car, it just feels different. So that's the best way I can explain it. The next is the housing tax. For some reason, when you pay DIVA on rent, you end up paying 5% of your yearly rental amount. That amount is relatively a lot higher than the amount you pay when you buy the apartment, when you own it. For some reason, the cost of the housing tax, is a lot lesser. I don't know how they calculate it and I don't know why, but that's just how it is. The next is that you have a sense of security. You're not thinking about having to move around and, oh, my contract's gonna get expired the next year, and what'll happen once it does? Will the owner ask me to move? Will people come to my house to like check it out and if they are house hunting or whatever? So you don't have to deal with all this. That's a good feeling. And the last thing I can think of is that you have a say in what happens in your community, in your building, in your apartment, in your surroundings. So usually when you own an apartment, you're part of like an owners association, or you have like a group on Facebook where you'll talk about your ideas and the issues that you'll face as homeowners. There's a certain influence that you have on the developer and the property management committee. So you're a little more engaged in these kind of aspects of your living situation. Now let's talk about the disadvantages. So the first disadvantage that I can think of is exorbitant maintenance fees in some communities. I'm pretty sure about it because I pay quite high maintenance fees. And some of them are quite ridiculous. You're paying for landscaping and tennis courts and football courts and swimming pools. Like you may or may not be using any of these facilities, but still you're paying for them. Security, cameras, and security systems. And a lot of these have a lot of redundancies and overlap, and sometimes you don't have a choice but to have to pay your maintenance fees because it's a legal requirement. The next disadvantage is that the maintenance of your house is entirely on you. So in case something goes wrong, there's a leakage in the plumbing, or there are cracks in the walls, or the window needs to be fixed, it's entirely up to you. No one else is going to foot the bill. You can opt to have like a contract with some maintenance company, but you're obviously going to pay for it. Then the next thing is buying and selling. The whole process of buying a house is quite tedious. There's a lot of hassle involved. Sometimes things could go sideways. There's a lot of money involved. And it goes the same with selling the house again. You may probably make a bit of money, you may probably not make any money at all, and you may also end up losing money. So selling and buying a house is a bit of a headache. Another thing is when you do own a house, if it's on mortgage, the banks take an incredible amount of interest. That's just how the system works. The bank is giving you a service, providing you with money that you don't have, and they're charging you a sizable amount of money for it. If it's something that you're not okay with, then I guess this is something you wouldn't be able to do. Banks do take a lot of interest, and it's something you have to deal with. And the last disadvantage is that considering the region that we're in, investing in a house, paying money and living in a house and buying a house, it is extremely risky because when you feel secure and you feel like your money is secure, it's more of like an illusion. Like right now, the whole world's in a difficult situation. Markets have crashed and property prices have tumbled and such. I don't suppose you should assume that your investment is going to make profits. You have to also consider that it may not. Another thing is that considering that you are an expat in this country, in case you need to stand up for your rights as a homeowner, let's say you have a legal problem with the developer, it is relatively quite challenging to oppose and win with these developers because a lot of them are part of the government, semi government. They are quite protective of their own people. In most cases, you may not want to deal with a situation like this where you may have like a big problem with the developer. And with regards to these companies having customer service, if you try to talk out a problem to the customer service, they definitely don't know what you're talking about. They're quite incompetent that way. There's a certain set of instructions that they've been given. They're supposed to follow up on inquiries and bills are not paid or whatever and all. But when it comes to anything critical, they have no clue about what they're talking about. So customer service is pretty crap. And unless you know someone high up, then there's nothing really else you can do about it. So that way, it's quite unnerving. So my experience with buying a house, I can probably conclude by saying that I really don't think it's a good idea. I think renting is a lot more beneficial in a country that is relatively unpredictable like this one. So if you're an expat, I strongly suggest you rent. I know sometimes it feels like it's a waste of money and such, but to be honest, you're using it like a service, like how you use your Diva and your phone bill and such. It's a service, you're paying for it, you're living in it. It's letting you feel secure and safe and warm and cold and all that. So that's just something you have to deal with. So that's all I have to talk about today. And thank you for listening in to the KC conversation. And have a good day.